What is up, everybody? Welcome back to my channel. Today we are here at Lake Julian Disc Golf Course with a couple of fairway drivers. We're going to be talking about forehands and metering the power, and I think that will become more apparent as we get into it by what I mean by that. But with fairway drivers being a faster rim than a putter or a mid-range, you do have to throw them harder to get the desired flight paths. But you can overcorrect. Let's go ahead and get throwing. And where this came from, when I truly realized what was going on, was throwing some tailwind shots with really understable drivers, trying to get those long, just straight pushing shots. And some of the drivers I could get going about 50% power and they would flip up and stay super straight. But some drivers, they just stayed on hyzer. They didn't really ever get all the way to flat. And where I came to the realization was, as the rim speed goes up, you still have to throw it harder to get it to do what you want. Because if, let's say this is a 7-speed disc, it's an Eagle L versus a 9-speed disc, an Omen, they're going to do very different things because the discs are designed to do very different things. But if I just had a 7-speed and a 9-speed that had the same shot shape, I could throw this one softer to achieve the same shot shape. And I think that comes much more into play with forehand, because with a backhand you can meter things by changing the spin, but on forehand we don't really have that option super much or as much, because we don't get nearly as much spin on a forehand. So we have to be very precise with release points, release angles, and release speeds, focusing on hitting the fingers through at the right time. And if your arm is ahead of your hand, you're probably going to out torque the disc, and it's not going to do what you want. So I'm going to try to get the Eagle L across safe here. Really good shot. And I know that one's not, I threw it soft enough that I could throw it on anhyzer. The wind was going to help carry it over. But I think if I threw it on that much anhyzer a little bit harder, probably would have ended up in the woods on the left, just cutting super hard, or maybe even dumped out in the lake, which is not what we want. We want to have very slow, very controlled and very smooth throws. So make sure you're metering your arm speed to the wrist. Forehands are so much about timing. It is so precise. And no, that was not the Omen. That was a Vela. That was a 7-speed. To get the Omen to not end up in the lake, I have to throw it a little harder. It's dry, it's retrievable, but we're gonna continue to throw and talk about this process and about why things do what they do. But just know that forehands require a lot more timing to be precise than backhands do. So there's basically two things that we need to look at here. The first is disc speed. When I say disc speed, I'm not talking about like how fast the rim is. Disc speed as in how fast is the disc coming out of your hand at. because there's two different speeds there. The first is the actual speed that it's coming out of your hand. So I don't know if this is your speed. I don't know if this is my speed right now. But to make it an easy round number to add to multiply on whatever, we're going to use 50. Let's say you throw it 50 miles an hour. You throw a 50 mile an hour forehand. This is a downhill shot. The hill's dropping off. So you threw it at 50 miles an hour. The disc is now, based off of your 50 mile an hour throw and also gravity, now perceived going faster. It's going faster down the hill, right? So downhill shots, uphill shots are going to do the opposite. The downhill is going to make your disc feel like it's going faster than it is, and the uphill is going to make it feel like it's going slower than it is. So there's the arm speed and then the perceived speed. What does the disc actually think it's coming out at? And that can really vary widely depending on wind as well. So right now we have about a 10 to 20 mile an hour tailwind. We'll use 10 to make it easy. 50 miles an hour. We're throwing this forehand at 50 miles an hour. Tailwind. So the disc thinks it's flying at 40 miles an hour, thus making it think that it's more overstable, that it didn't actually get thrown that hard, thus making it more overstable. So you can use understable discs in tailwinds and get really, really far because they're going to carry the same speed and the same distance that you threw it at, but they're going to the flight characteristics are going to act more overstable, like you threw it slower. And if you throw the reverse direction into this if we switched and flipped the other way, the disc would think that I just threw it at 60 miles an hour. So what had been the right amount of speed and spin, suddenly the spin is the same, the speed just got up by 10 miles an hour. So you have to really take into account where the wind is coming from, wind direction, wind speed. Because yeah, it's a tailwind right now, but right now it's about 2 miles an hour. So it wouldn't really do too much. And then also take into account the nature of the hole you're about to play. This being a downhill hole, I can vary this. I know that on downhill, this is going to hold a little bit straighter, but with the tailwind, it's going to be a little bit more overstable. So it's probably going to do about the normal thing as it would on flat ground. That would have been a fun ace. And so with the tailwind blowing, I want these to actually flip up to flat and hold straight. So I do have to kind of throw them a little bit harder because the perceived disc speed right now is a little bit lower than my actual arm speed. I want those drop. They're so close. But this being a more overstable disc and a faster rim, I can throw this really, really hard and still get the same result. They're gonna do slightly different shot shapes. But for a lot of the MPO players, you see them throwing Raptors, you see them throwing Firebirds. It's for that reason, because they can just throw it really, really hard. But then you see somebody like Jeremy Colling or on the female side, the FPO side, Sarah Hokum, they're throwing forehands and they're throwing flippy discs. And they're controlling the angles and manipulating the angles. So there's just get an overstable disc that's super torque resistant and throw it as hard as you absolutely can. Doesn't matter if there's spin, because it'll be somewhat stabled out by the end because it's super beefy. Or you can have control and touch and try to be smooth with it, which is the one I'm trying to become, because just hammering on forehands has torqued my shoulder into positions it should not be in. Yeah, we have flipped the script. The wind is now a headwind, and assuming that it's a 10-mile-an-hour wind, and assuming I want to get the exact same shot as the last time, the shot with the tailwind, then I would have to throw it presumably 20 miles an hour slower. I don't want to get that shot. I want to try to replicate the speed and timing and release of those throws as much as possible and see how these are different when you take it from a tailwind to a headwind. We still have the downhill going for us, but what happens when the wind changes? That was probably a little bit more hyzer than the last hole. I'm going to try to flatten it out just a touch with this Vela. And you saw that thing flipped up, it turned, it drifted a little bit. It's really nice for that. But if I were to hit it actually flat, big long panning shot. So remember the disc speed and remember the perceived speed. And let's see if I can actually make this omen fly somewhat straight. Well, I just nosed it straight up. That's gonna make it stable. Nose angle also has a lot to do with it, and if you can't control your nose angle, then wind is going to play with your discs so much. So remember the disc speed, how fast it's actually coming out of your hand. Remember to moderate the speed it's coming out of your hand for the speed of the disc, the rim size. And remember that wind can change the perceived speed of the disc. So if it's suddenly a headwind and you're still trying to get the same overstable zone shot, maybe the zone might be too slow. Maybe go up to a Raptor. Maybe go up to a Firebird. If you're trying to throw a Firebird shot or maybe a Thunderbird shot, something a little bit straighter, and you're throwing one to a headwind, disc it up. Go for the Zeus, go for the Destroyer, go for the whatever your slightly more overstable distance driver is instead of the 9-speed, because the wind will change the speed of the discs for you. When I throw with a headwind, I feel like the strongest person alive. And when I throw with a strong tailwind, I have trouble flipping up really understable drivers. So wind can do some crazy stuff. Remember that. Don't let it get in your head. And hopefully you guys enjoy content like this. If so, please make sure to like the video. If you want to see new stuff though, make sure to comment all of that down below. Please make sure to subscribe. It helps you guys out with these subscriber only giveaways. And if you want to be automatically entered into monthly disc giveaways, check out the memberships as well. Until next time, see you out on the course.